Hello, Steve Slack here again, and welcome to my tutorial 3 of the building blocks series, and it's conditional if. Without further ado, let's go to our normal screen that we work within. We'll just make a little bit more space by moving that over there like that, just to give us a bit of room in our script background. Okie doke, let's go to our sense sprite, which we've been doing all our work in so far. And the blocks we're going to be concentrating on in this tutorial are the if blocks. Now, you've got to bear with me on the if blocks part of this tutorial, because I'm very likely to call them if statements, because that's what I've been calling them all my programming life. So if that happens, just beep it yourself in your mind and replace the word statement for block. If you can't do that, well, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to bear with it. Old habits die hard, apparently. Okay, so we have dragged across now our two if statements, and just so that we've got a starter without having to double click them, we're going to put a green flag on. Now, ifs are fairly simplistic blocks to understand, and they're quite complex to master, and therefore the conditional part of the building blocks is likely going to take 3 to 4 tutorials to complete. So this first one is just focusing on ifs themselves and what we can do with them in sense. So in order to do our little program, we're going to need to do a bit of a loop. We'll put the forever loop in, which, as you know, starts here, loops to there, and goes back and loops, well, forever. And we're going to put our if block in there first. Okay, so now we have an if block, we have a forever, and as you can see, when the green flag is clicked, this will run forever, and if something is true, it'll do that what's in there. If not, it won't. To show that working, we're just going to simply use one of the inputs that we've used before in our sense tutorials, which is key space. So when the key space is pressed, so we're going through, we're clicking our green flag, making this run forever, and whenever the key space is pressed, we're going to do something. I think everyone can just about guess what that is now. Yes, we're going to turn our sprite 15 degrees. Now this is quite interesting. If you watch this, I'm going to start this running, and as you can see, nothing's happening to our sprite because at the moment this is false, and whenever this returns a false, the key space isn't pressed, for instance, it won't do what's within its arms. So that's what the if basically does. When it gets a positive from this condition, it then performs everything that was within its if arms. So to show that working, I'm going to tap space very gently, quick tap. As you can see, the sense sprite turned, but I think it turned a bit more than 15 degrees. As you can see, it's not the single block that we're used to. And this is because this is running all the time. So whenever I press the space key, it will turn 15 degrees. Now, my slow hand might be able to press it for a tenth of a second, for instance, but this will run many times within that period, so that's why you're seeing more than a 15 degrees move. In fact, if you watch when I hold space down, what's happening is looping forever, and whilever the key space is pressed, it's turning 15 degrees, and as you can see, as long as the key space is pressed, it keeps doing that. Take my finger off, stops, back on, spins. So that's a very basic way of showing how the if statement or block works. Okay, and also we can put a lot of different things into there. We don't have to just have the if statement. For example, we could do a size change. In this instance, we're going to change size by 10 every time when the key space is pressed. As you can see, it gets very, very big. Indeed, right up to its limit. If we change that to -5, for instance, start our script running, and whenever we press the space, it shrinks again, right down to its smallest possible value. So as you can see, there's many things that we can do within the if statement. Sorry about that. Many things that we can do within the if statement. We're not just limited to turning. We can change the colours, for instance, using another looks. Here we can have a colour effect, and we can change that effect by 5, and I'm just going to set the size to 100% here so that you can see this working. I'm going to take the change size out. I don't know if you noticed, when you take the top block out of a programming code block, it takes everything underneath it. Well, it's quite easy, just take that off of there and put that on there, and we have our colour effect ready to go. And if you watch the sense now, when we press our space, we are getting a lot of zany colours coming on. And again, if we want to change that and set the colour, we just go over here and set colour effect to 0, and we're back to our normal colours. So there you can see that with a single if command we can do many changes, and mostly within sense they're confined to the sprite that we're within. We can do changes via other methods from other sprites, but this is the core of what if programming is all about. So from there we're going to go on to if then else blocks, and if we take that out, put the if else block on, you'll notice that our code's still running. We're going to put our key space in there. I'm going to turn 15 degrees, and oh, what surprise, nothing's happening. So this is an if else. Now what this means is, if this condition is true, or in this case if key space is pressed, we're going to turn 15 degrees clockwise. Now else is another way of saying otherwise. So if we say this out in English, if the space is pressed, turn 15 degrees. Otherwise, for example, if the key space isn't pressed, do what's in these arms. So let's see, what shall we do? I think you've all guessed now that we're going to go 15 degrees anti-clockwise. Now watch, as soon as I release this, if we look at our sense sprite, as soon as I release this, it starts spinning anti-clockwise. So that works very well, as you can see. And if I press space, you know what's going to happen. It's going to immediately change its direction to clockwise. So that's quite an interesting piece of code that we can use in sense. If you can imagine, for example, with this piece of code, if our sense was a spaceship flying along, and while it's spinning clockwise it's just flying as normal, and if we release our space, it then has a shield around it. You can actually shield it as you need to as it's flying along. I'll show you that in a slightly different way. We're going to our costumes. As you can see, I've changed one of the images to black sense, we'll call it. We've got sense images 2 as its name. So if we go back to scripts, I'm going to change this. We're going to take out the 2 turns, and instead we're going to put the costume in. I'm going to say if key space is pressed, change to sense image. Otherwise, change to sense image 2. And again, watch, as soon as we press, it changes black. Press space. As you can see, it's totally conditional. If the space is pressed, it's its normal colours. If it's released, it's its dark colours. So, as you can imagine, this is very useful for many types of programming jobs. For example, if you were to write a word processor in Sense, and Sense obviously doesn't use the Shift key as one of its points, what you could actually do is set, if up arrow is pressed, then use uppercase. And whenever up arrow is not pressed, switch it down to lowercase again. So as you can see, it's a very useful piece of code, so use it well. That's really an introduction to the if blocks. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next part I'm going to be going on to nested ifs and nested if else nested if else. So good luck guys, and catch you later. Bye.